Well, welcome everybody to a Coach Approach webinar. This is Coach Approach for the holidays. I'm Alex Greenland. I'm one of the Coach Approach partners. And we thought this would be fun to use this time of year as a way to apply and think about the Coach Approach in our everyday life. Before we begin, of course, we transition into the webinar by just taking a moment to be present. So if you find yourself that your legs are crossed, or you're doing other things, or you're finishing up that last email, just to put that aside for now, sit up straight in your chair, uncross your legs, arms by your side, eyes open or closed, and just take a deep breath. Bringing yourself into this time together, into this discussion, showing up in the way that you want to show up, and being receptive to the other people on this call and their great stories and questions. And another deep breath. Okay, and if you feel like there's anything coming in from the day, just acknowledge it, let it pass. One more deep breath. And we'll begin. Welcome, welcome. So today in this webinar, we're going to do a multi-facilitation. So we have a couple of other facilitators that are going to take over up some parts. So Doris, let's make sure that you're there. Doris, are you here?
I am here. I'm sorry, I had to unmute. Good morning.
That's okay. You're being present.
Okay,
so why don't
good.
you take us through the welcoming questions?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you are all able to join today. And I just wanted to start out by having a discussion and asking, you know, how any of you have used the Coach Approach over your Thanksgiving holiday, if there are individuals that have. And so I'll kind of put it out there. Anybody that would like to, talk about ways you might have used the Coach Approach over your Thanksgiving holiday.
Hi, my name is Maria Flores. So I'm not sure if I use the Coach Approach in general, but I did the first step. At least I think I took a step back. I did a lot of self-care, and I was present. I made a conscious effort of being present and listening. And that was a lot for me. I really needed it. And I think it doesn't come naturally, or we're not present and listen. And I think I did a lot of that. That part, I can tell you, I made an effort in being there.
And Maria, what was the outcome of that?
Well, I felt rejuvenated. I feel with more energy. I feel like that's a way of reducing my own burnout. And I felt people around me comfortable as well. You know, presence is like a gift. I felt like really presence was a gift for myself and others. Just being present and just like enjoying, you know, the moment. Listening is just like being present, enjoying the moment. It just goes hand in hand.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Say, maybe not so much of when I used the Coach Approach, but when reflecting back where I think I probably could have. And I think in some occasions, there were, you know, when the kids are running around and, you know, you're cooking and trying to get things together and whatnot, there were moments where I probably could have just done like Maria said, just kind of step back and been a little more present to just allow them the space to just enjoy their holiday, as well as, you know, taking care of the things that I had to take care of. So I know that there were some moments, you know, over the holiday where I probably could have been a little bit more, you know, use a few more of the Coach Approach skills than I did at the time. But upon reflection, I know as we go into the next holiday, I'm more aware and can definitely see, you know, kind of taking those in.
Thanks,
Great, Dwayne. Would there be anybody else that could either share how you may have used pieces of the coach approach, even if it wasn't the full coach approach, or if there were opportunities, looking back in reflection, moments or situations that you could have used the coach approach and how that might have changed the outcome.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. I was looking for that icon.
Hi.
Quickly, for me, my name is Andre. It's great to be on. For Thanksgiving, I did something different. We had a dinner at home with over 30 odd persons. And this was the first time that it was more than just food. It's just usually food. This time around, I spoke with my wife about having persons write on sheets of paper what they're thankful for, and of course, that's not a new thing from many traditions. It's new for us. Thanksgiving isn't a tradition that the Thanksgiving Day or Thanksgiving holiday is not part of our tradition, but we chose to integrate that whole process of giving thanks throughout that dinner. In terms of using the coach approach, typically I am the one who would spearhead all the activities, and this time around, I took a very, very collaborative approach, and because of the both of us, I'm usually more, excuse me, I'm usually the more talkative one. I'm the one who usually gives introductions. I'm the one giving giving the directions. This time around, the collaborative approach, my wife was the person who started off introductions. I was prepared. I had a metaphor to use. I had every single thing to start conversations and to gear our attention around Thanksgiving. But she did it. She did it. And a part of me wanted to do what I wanted to do, like to say, okay, well, she did her thing. Now let me do what I was prepared to do. And thankfully, I didn't for various reasons. I was rewarded for that in many ways. But I think one of the most telling aspects of this is that I think this provided an opportunity for my wife to feel supported by me, where I didn't have to lean into my strength, but to give her a platform to utilize skills and to leverage skills that she had, that in truth, probably because I was always talking so much and as always the one who'd be, the most overt person, she probably never had a chance to identify, to explore, and to leverage those skills. So now, moving forward, I think that we're definitely going to be collaborating more in that respect, and that's credit to the coach's approach experience that I had earlier this year. Just really being able to work with folks to identify where they are and to hear how they might approach it, to celebrate that, to leverage it. So hopefully that answers that first question.
Thank you, Andre, for sharing. That sounds like you really had a wonderful experience, and just warms my heart to hear you share that story. And it's one of the, the experience that you have with your wife. It's one of the, tenets of the coach approach, that we come in believing that people are capable and competent of doing things on their own, and if provided the right opportunity, they can step forward and take those opportunities. And so it sounds like you really created that kind of space for your wife to step into that role. And so it warms my heart to hear that. So thank you so much for sharing. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Doing great.
Good.
That was an excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else? So let me ask then, of the people that are on the call, what would you like most to come away with by the end of today from today's webinar?
This is Mark. I'll throw something in real quick. So we have a couple of there was a death in the family a couple of months ago, where one of our nephews, one of my fiance's aunts had passed away, and the husband is now single. And I know coming up on this holiday, there's going to be, I think, some good family tension as far as his ability to kind of eventually move on with his life and then the kids. So I think for my coach, like some of the things I really want to come away with is really some ideas on how I can kind of be there when I need to be. For both the uncle and the kids, and helping them to talking with them and helping them to kind of come to their own realization on where they need to be with their relationships and their thoughts. We have a tendency to kind of keep things inside and then let things build up. So it's kind of that idea of talking with them and really trying to figure out where they're coming from, and using some of this kind of coach approach for the holidays to make some progress or make some conceded efforts in helping relationships there.
Thank you. Who would be next to share what their thoughts about what they'd like to come away with by the end of the day today?
Just for each call has a different focus. There are still themes that are repeated and reinforced, and that has helped me a lot and has shaped the trajectory of where I've been taking my career in respect to coaching and executive presence. So I think what I'd like to come away with at the end of today's session is just reinforcing the fact that I am actually doing the right thing, that I'm actually doing not just the right thing, but that the approaching my work management from the standpoint of adaptive leadership style, coaching style, actually is serving me in the best ways possible. Yeah, I think that probably would be the takeaway that I would like from today.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, you want to make sure you're implementing the different pieces of the coach approach in the most beneficial way that you could for yourself.
Well, not so much that I'm implementing it, because I am implementing it, but whenever I'm on this call, it reinforces the fact that I made the right decision. Okay. Right. So at the end of today, my hope is that idea is being reinforced. So it actually fuels me investing more in this direction.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Andre. I'm sorry.
Yep. No problem.
Okay.
That was a great use of clarifying and reflecting. What a great segue to our coach approach skills.
Thank you. So
Good job,
we
Doris.
will move. Thank you. We'll move on to the next screen. And so just these skills are skills that, you all know, you've all practiced. It's a review of the coach approach skills. So presence and centering. And Maria, I like what you had said about, really with this season being so busy, taking the time to take care of yourself, being present for yourself. It really enables you to be present for the others that you're spending time with, within your family, at holiday parties. And you had said, really taking the time to listen and hear what people are saying. And that, setting the stage for, really being able to listen and clarify what people are saying, make sure you're, understanding them correctly, and then asking good questions, the how and what kind of questions versus the why, providing feedback, and creating opportunities for accountability. And really, this is an opportunity, to model the behavior of the coach approach in terms of how we show up over the holidays and how that impacts how others that we're interacting with will show up as well. So just a light review of the coach approach skills. Any thoughts or additional comments on the skills?
All right. Thank you, Doris. Great job.
Thank you. We'll move on then. Thank you.
So we're now moving into sort of the new content here. So sometimes we do 60 seconds on neurobiology. Today we're just doing 60 seconds on psychology. So there's a phenomenon which is called repetition compulsion. So that's when a person repeats an event or its circumstances over and over again, reenacting the event, putting itself in a situation where an event is likely to happen again. So in other words, there's a comfort that we have in falling into patterns. Patterns are familiar to us, so we can relax a little bit in the certainty of predictable behaviors. So this is why we're more comfortable in our homes, because we feel safe there, because we're certain that the things are comfortable or at least familiar enough that they're known. For those of you who have followed along with like SCARF and VUCA, so C is the certainty for SCARF. So it gives us a reward to be in a position where things are familiar to us. And for a VUCA environment where things are so ambiguous and uncertain and complex, being in a place that has a lot of certainty is comforting. So we're not looking for threats as much in just the unknown when we're in a place that is comfortable. So of course we're taking that into the holidays, and we're saying that with family or with the holiday season, we have a pattern of behavior that we can recognize. Sometimes, like I'll speak for myself and my family, there's a clear holiday-related stress that exists. And even though I've taken myself out of those situations, I notice that when it's time for the holidays, I still get stressed. I still feel my shoulders raising up now, even as I'm talking about it. Even though it's uncomfortable to have the stress, my mind, the psychology is that in these situations, it's almost like I know what I expect and I adjust to that because that adjustment has been so familiar. So this can cause breakdowns, right? So breakdowns can happen in the situations that are most familiar to us. Just to draw a comparison very quickly, this is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, reports that 25% of all car accidents occur within a mile of home. 52% occur within 5 miles, and 69% accidents happen within 10 miles. So one may imagine that if people are driving into a new area that has different speed limits or unfamiliar turns or people following the GPS, that actually more car accidents would happen in a place that's unfamiliar. But in fact, it's the opposite, that most car accidents happen with it that are close to home. Now, a pushback of this data is, well, of course, people are going to be within a mile of their home more often, and that's true. However, there's other data from other sources that suggest that when people go on to like vacations in a place that's unfamiliar, our brain activity is heightened because things are more unfamiliar to us. And so when people are a mile from home or 5 miles from home, there's a relax of, oh, I know what these streets are. I'm home. I'm not thinking about driving anymore. I'm thinking about what's the thing that I'm going to do once I get home. And then that's when accidents happen, when we sort of take the comfort for granted. So we're naturally less present when we're more familiar with our surroundings. We're naturally thinking about what's the next thing or what's the other thing. So on the holidays, we're thinking about how can we preserve our presence when we're around a certain situation, family or family members, a holiday season. Even if the holiday doesn't cause stress for you, it might cause stress for other people, and how to not help them in a default way of asking, or I should say giving advice in disguise, but using the coach approach in this way. So how can we use this in the holiday season, given that because it's comfortable and familiar and stressful, we're more likely to break down. So now I'll turn it over to Mark to talk about VUCA at home.
Sure, thank you, Alex. So I'm just going to kind of go back into VUCA. And Alex kind of started to go down that a little bit, but I just want to give a little bit of a refresher on kind of VUCA and really how that relates to kind of what we're talking about here. So VUCA, the V is volatility, and it's that speed and nature of change. The U is that uncertainty, that lack of predictability, the opportunity for surprise, the unknown. Complexity, so that multiple and often competing forces that are at play. And then when we think about families, I'm going to kind of frame this into this as we kind of come together and we haven't seen our families in a while. We might not know everything that's happening. And then it's that ambiguity, that general haziness, mixed meanings, opportunities to misunderstand. And kind of tying into what Alex had just talked about, this idea that these breakdowns can happen in our relationships when we fall into patterns. You see your family members, your friends, your acquaintances, maybe you haven't seen them in a while and you just kind of fall back into that old pattern of information or that old idea of where you knew things were at. And when we fall into those patterns, we don't always see everything that's happened in that time. We just have this kind of assumption, or we put our own morals and values, say, okay, from our last conversation, this is what happened. And we don't know everything that's happened. And when we start to fall into those patterns of we just assume of what's happening, we can really set that person, that VUCA off. So they're seeing this as this uncertainty because they're coming into a situation knowing something that you don't. Maybe there's an argument or disagreement with a brother, a sister, an aunt, and uncle, and you have no idea that it's there. So when you fall into these patterns of everything's the same, you can kind of also kind of really help escalate that other person's VUCA. So what we're imagining is that and when we're doing this is sometimes we're also doing the idea of we're doing our best because we know them. We know that they're going to want to hear a joke. They're going to want to hear this, want to hear that. So we're just kind of going into this autopilot mode and not being present and just being our happy-go-lucky self. And that can really kind of set people off because we're forgetting about what's also happening. So if you're not present, you're not reading the signs, you're not reading the cues, you're not listening to what that person is saying. So sometimes for us, it's really about when we're doing this VUCA at home, how are we sitting back and really understanding from that person that we're engaging with, the family members we're engaging with, what is the volatility? What is the uncertainty? What is the complexity? What is that ambiguity that I might not know? There might be nothing, and you might just be in tune to what's happening, but there could be something that you might be able to pick up on. So in that, we're often aware of our own changes. So we know what our motivation is, our goal is when we go into a conversation a lot of times, but we don't know what their goal is as others. They may not want to talk about it. They may not want to address it. They may want to put it all out there. So it's really about kind of, we're aware of our own changes, but we might not be aware where the other person's coming from. And ultimately, what we're really thinking about is how, when we are talking with one another, by being present, by being there for them, how we can both improve that person's scarf, and then if we're not present, if we're not there, if we're not understanding where they're coming from, how we can also hurt that person's scarf. So if everyone's remembers and kind of refreshes, scarf is that idea of status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And status is that idea about the relative importance to others. And that certainty is those concerns, being able to predict the future, what's going to happen next, how am I know, where do I know I am in this situation? Autonomy is that providing that sense of control, giving that person the opportunity to talk, giving that person the opportunity to just listen. That relatedness, so in that sense of safety with others, so knowing that friend and foe, and knowing that you're there to kind of be there for them. And ultimately the fairness is that perception of fair exchanges between people. So how can we really engage one another so that you are giving them the equal opportunity to be there for them, and then also they can be there for you. So basically what we're trying to do is not operate under our old assumptions. So, and with that, ultimately, here's the good question. Where do you want to be for the holidays? Do you want to be mindful or mindful? I know probably thinking about my mom and my fiance and some of the family members, they're going to be on this mindful, full of everything else up until Christmas, because it's the parties, the this, the that, and all of the things happening. So how can we support those people that are mindful by us switching also to being mindful of their needs? So I think that's one of the things, like one of my goals is how can I be that support and really kind of get them to that level of mindfulness as well, and by helping and being supportive for them and understanding where their needs are. Any questions or comments or thoughts on anything that we just kind of talked about?
Well, this is Ellen. Hi, everybody. I just realized, Mark, when you were kind of going through that, this whole idea of changes, changing who's coming, what the food's going to be, the location of all of your things. So I recently changed the venue for a holiday party, just not even thinking about it. And my brother-in-law was super offended that I did that. And what I just realized from when you reviewed that was that I pulled his choice away, and his autonomy was, I didn't inquire as to whether that would be okay. And I snagged his scarf, and I really need to be more present about the impact of changes in the routine, the routine that Alex was talking about, sort of that familiarity piece, that if you make any changes, it might impact our loved ones in ways that we hadn't anticipated.
Yeah. And so how would you have handled that differently? Because some of the venues, there might be a must change, but how could you handle that in a different way?
Yeah, instead of sort of announcing the change, which is what I did. And yes, it had to do with the fact that there are babies and children and, there was all sorts of things, but instead of doing that, I could put things out more as a clarification, or as a sort of an opportunity with a question. Does this work for everyone? Or are there anything I need to know about before this change gets made that I should know about, or we should know about?
So in a way, reinforcing their status of kind of making it relatively important to them and giving them the certainty to understand this is a change and why it was a change, not just because I wanted to change.
Right. And revealing that and not making the assumption that there was a good reason. Not everyone's going to assume that, and I have to remember that as this all goes forward. It was bad. For a nanosecond, then I got okay.
All right. Well, Alex, if we'll give it another second for if there's any other comments.
For other comments, Diana?
Yes. I was laughing, which you could not hear, when Ellen was talking, because I did something similar too. I have 3 younger sisters, so I'm the oldest, and I fit a lot of the typical stereotypes. It was always my job to round the cats up and keep them in order. And they, of course, resented me for it, and I resented them because I had to do it. But there's a lot of us. And yes, we have babies, we have toddlers. There's all these little people running around, and the more there are, our houses just don't expand upon wish. And so my youngest sister, who is actually very similar to me, she and I decided, wow, it would be nice if we could find a place that was like cushy, maybe like not like a fire hall, something, maybe had a fireplace or, some sort of ambiance. Well, we didn't factor in the other two, and suffice to say, we backed out of that rather quickly whenever, the response came. And of course, with my phone on mute, I'm like, oh, honestly, so we're all going to be stuck. But, I did this off screen, as I often do about things, my ranting and raving, and it gets it out of my system. All is well. So I decided in my true self that Christmas Eve night, when we are all stuffed in the house, and this is a pretty good sized house anyway, if anyone says anything about tripping over someone else or anything else, I'm going to smile and say, enjoy the closeness, which is naughty, very fulfilling. So yes, I did get a chuckle out of that because those are the things that we deal with too. I think everybody does.
Yeah. Thank you, Diana, for that. I would say that there's a real opportunity for empathy, particularly around the holidays, because we can imagine, as we're thinking about a million different things like this person on the left, the person that we're stepping on their toes or who are stepping on our toes, they're also having a million things. And it's interesting that, you know, in a holiday when we're trying to take care of everyone else and everyone's trying to take care of everyone and make it a nice holiday, it can cause the most stress. So I'll go back to something that Maria said earlier in the call about how presence can just be a real gift to a person in and of themselves, a way to slow down and take a moment and just put all the clutter sort of aside and just focus on the here and now. Focus on either problem solving, either changing plans, or just visiting with family instead of running around putting out fires. So presence and mindfulness is so important and can be modeled throughout the holidays. And one of my favorite sayings is, just because that's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. So I'm not suggesting that this is easy, and it can make a really big difference. So thank you, Mark, for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll recap a lot of things that have emerged in the conversation. So with so many obligations to ourselves, to family, to picking venues, buying gifts, etc., make sure you take time for yourself. Give yourself time to be present in the moment and take care of yourself. I mean, it's a special time. So do what you need to do to take care of yourself, even if that means excusing yourself or giving yourself space to just recenter and reset. This will help you turn your reactions into responses. I mean, how often do we have a close relationship with a loved one, and we jump to a reaction for what they do, and because we're so familiar with them, we get comfortable, and that's when our diligence might lapse. So what we want to do is we want to respond in the way that we want to. We want to show up in the way that we respond to instead of just reacting. Being present is definitely going to help with that. The next part is familiar circumstances, as we said before, make it easy to fall into old habits. If you have, the same sweet potato pie, or you have the same turkey or chicken, brings back old memories, and then it's like you're 15 years old again, and then you start acting like you're 15 years old again, and then all hell breaks loose. So finding a way to just take in what it is, but also recognize that every holiday is different. People grow, people change, and if you show up in a different way, the other people that might cause stress in your life might show up in a different way as well. I know that when I do the coach approach, sometimes people have conversations with each other, husbands or wives or children, that they haven't had in years, and it can be such a strong relationship building conversation. So being able to bring that into the holidays, I think, could be a really good strategy. And this is a great opportunity to ask clarifying questions. So when we talk about status and autonomy, relatedness, fairness, oftentimes when we do trainings and we talk about the coach approach, this is in sort of a work dynamic or in a power dynamic with people who are being supported. This is also true in families. There's status within families, right? There's relatedness and autonomy and fairness all within family dynamics about who's in control, and if people are trying to one-up each other, or if someone's disappointed by somebody else. So just being able to recognize that and navigate that through asking clarifying questions as opposed to questions that solve, giving this an opportunity for people to share what's going on with them in the limited time that you have together. And really just being there as a sounding board for them so that they can really feel understood, being present with them. That can be the most powerful thing that you give someone the holiday season. I know that's a cliche, the best gift you can give, but it's really true. So tips over the holidays. The biggest tip is clear requests, offers, and commitments, and we'll have Duanine go over that with you in a moment. Just like a quick tip is, instead of let me help you with that, instead of taking for the sake of getting things done quickly, preserving status and autonomy with questions like, what can I help you with, or how can I help you? So getting it into their choice to accept or reject your support, instead of coming in and taking over and just giving support. Managing your own responsibilities and delegating, and who can you ask for help? So making sure that you understand that there are other people that would be willing to support you if they're just given the chance. And then asking for support in yourself. So what will you need for support if something goes wrong? Is that 5 minutes? Is that a drive? Whatever you need to be present or to reset, not being afraid to ask for that. So I'll pause there. Does anybody have any questions or reactions or thoughts about these two slides? Coach approach tips over the holidays.
Just a little bit about requests and kind of making the distinction between requests and offers. So we want the future to unfold in a different way than it seems to be heading by itself. And in order to put things in action, we make a request. And so I pulled up a little something about requests, and it was a very good way of saying it for me. It just made it very clear to me. It's just that a request is an action made in language that creates a future that would not have existed previously. So you're asking people, when you're requesting something, you want to ask to make sure that it's clear. You want to make sure that people understand what it is you're asking for, so that you don't have an expectation that the person that you're requesting something from doesn't understand. So it's especially important to have a conversation before you make your request. I want to also say, when it comes to requests, you want to take into consideration who you're asking the request from. Is it something, or will you be snagging their scarf? Is it something that they're able to do? You don't want to ask of someone something that they're not able to, comply with. And then also understand that they can say no. They can accept or they can say no, and be prepared for that. And one thing about, some have an issue with rejection. And so understand that rejection is not personal, and to not take it and allow it to snag your own scarf where someone just says, they may not be able to do that, and just be understanding of that in the situation and at the time. And if it is rejected and it is something that you really, feel that you need to go into, then you can ask, what can they commit to? If your actual request is not something that they can do, then what is it that they can do? And kind of having that conversation and being open to, like Andre was saying earlier, the collaboration. If this is something that needs to be done, what can we do, to get to this place together? And be sincere in what you're asking for, and declare your satisfaction when the request is delivered. We've talked a lot over our time together with Coach Approach about awareness and just being present. And when we're talking about present, that's the sincerity when you're asking something. And I think it creates a different dynamic when you're sincerely making a request, as opposed to handing down, this is what I want. And we've talked about that over the time too. I really enjoyed earlier when Alex was talking about the familiarity of our surroundings. We kind of let down some of those guards, and we let go of some of those, what do you call them? The word's leaving me right now, but when you want to, the common courtesy that you provide to other people that may be strangers, that you kind of lose that when you're with family. And so we're just kind of coming together and realizing that these people that we love so much deserve those courtesies as well, even under these stressful situations. And when we're making requests, to keep those in mind as well. And then making the distinction between requests and moving on to offers. And I think, yeah. So offers are made to address concerns by providing support. And something I did want to say around the holidays, we have the tendency to want to do so much and we may over offer sometimes. And so keeping in mind when we offer, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but offers can quickly become commitments. So before you make an offer, ensure that you're able to commit if the person accepts your offer. So in asking, how can I support you, is a general offer of support. Like Alex was saying, it's not something saying, you know, taking the power away from someone and saying, let's let me do this for you, but how can I support you in what you're doing? Andre, this was a beautiful, you gave a beautiful, you know, explanation of that with your wife and how you're supporting her in something that you would normally just take over and run with, but you got to see the gift for you as well was to get to see her shine in something that you may not have gotten to see her shine in before. And that's how we can offer some support. And be very specific with your offer. And then this is what I'm talking about when we say over offering, and not saying that I can offer to take over everything, but I can offer a piece. You know, you have this huge project and there's what can you offer for that project to get done? Not saying that you'll do the entire project, but what do you have to offer and being very clear about that. And just like requests, we must allow room for others to reject our offers and be open to their requests about how we can support them. And sometimes I have a 5-year-old, and this comes up often. I would like to help him a lot. And he's at the age where he doesn't want my help. And sometimes as a mother, you feel that tinge of, no, I can do it myself. But giving him that space and freedom to grow. And sometimes where our offers come from a very sincere place, sometimes we don't realize that we are taking away that opportunity to grow. And we must understand if someone wants that opportunity to be open and allow that. So again, I want to reiterate that offers can quickly become commitments. And when we're making offers, we must be able to commit to them if those offers are accepted. So you're making a commitment whenever you say you will do something, whether you realize that or not. And commitments are to be taken seriously. Imagine you're under oath. There was a saying, and it still goes around a lot from my childhood, my childhood, my word is bond. So when I give my word, it is a bond that I'm making between us. And so when you commit to something, you're making a bond with someone that you'll show up in the way that you said you would show up and show through. And if in that moment that you're not allowed, but to be clear and open to say, you know what, I knew I said I would, but have the conversation and ensure that you are keeping communication open in that situation. Commitment should be clear, actionable, and as precise as you can make them. If you don't see the pattern here, we're talking about clarity and being sure that people understand what we're first asking, what we're offering, and what we're committing to. We want to be on the same page to avoid some of those breakdowns that happen. So if we know from jump, you know, from the beginning, what is clearly expected or what I can clearly give or what I can clearly commit to, it makes for the outcomes to be so much better. So whether we keep or break commitments impact trust, impacts relationships, success, and self-esteem. So again, if we need to break a commitment, we need to acknowledge, apologize, and repair. Take the time and maintain, we want to maintain our relationships. And so showing some of that, as we talked about before, vulnerability. And you know, I said I could do this, but unfortunately I'm not able to. A great example of that, we had a holiday wish program that we put on, we adopted or sponsored some families and we bought gifts for them. And someone came to my office probably toward the end of it when it was time to turn things in, excessively apologetic about I wasn't able to get, you know, what I was supposed to get and I'm so sorry. But in that moment, it was fine. And it was so much clearer to come and say I wasn't able to do this instead of not show up at all, and then that family didn't have, you know, one of the things that they wanted, and we were able to correct because she came down and had the conversation to say I wasn't able to keep my commitment to this, however, what can I do? And we were able to still come out with a wonderful result and a fantastic, we never get to see the families. I know that these families are going to have a wonderful Christmas because of what our office was able to do. But in those moments when you cannot keep your commitments, you must have the conversation and just for yourself, for yourself and for the person that you are made the commitment to maintain the relationship. Just be open and communicate.
Great, thank you, Dwaneen. Hopefully this is resonating with people in terms of what have been times when we've made requests or requests have been made to us, maybe where no was not an option, and how that felt, both as a giver and a receiver. When we offer and then people don't accept our offers, or we offer too much and then they accept our offer, but then we regret offering so much, or there's a commitment that's made that's broken. Very easy to find resentment, and something that could be avoided by being more clear from our requests, offers, and commitments, or by just having the expectation that they can be rejected and for that to be okay. And just a quick last note about this, a way to adjust requests, offers, and commitments is to say in the request or in the offer, what about that is important to you? I would really like it if you helped me with this. It would give me time for X, Y, Z. So now you're not sending somebody to pick up, your mother-in-law because you'd rather not. It's because by them doing this, it allows you to do something else. So just adding that for the sake of what can be really helpful. Let's just do a quick all call for other things you're thinking about in terms of requests, offers, and commitments before we go to our last discussion. What's coming up for you?
This is Mary Garrett. I really love this because I tend to have people stay at my house for like 5 days, and sometimes I have a second crew come in, like after the first crew leaves. And I, some years people help more than others, and I think it's just what's going on in their own lives or their need for a break. But I really love it because I really like being able also, Dwaneen, how you presented it, like being really clear in my request, but also what's causing me to ask for the request. And then in my offers, and I'm really trying to, my mind is full right now so that I can be mindful and really present when people are here. So I'm trying to get a lot of things done ahead of time because I really want to be able to be present and not working the whole time. And so I just really love this because it is where, probably one of my worst qualities in family, it can be resentment. And all this really addresses that, right? How to make requests, how to be clear about what I'm making the request for, and to be really proactive about that. And I think the coach approach has really helped me to do that. And then how I make offers and how I stay present. And I have on the top of my to-do list, thanks to Ellen, my values. So relationship and wholeness is sitting at the top of my to-do list so that I'll keep those in mind, that that's the most important thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Mary Garrett. Yeah, expectations can be everything, Hey, come over for the holidays. To some people, that means, oh, great, I don't have to bring anything. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit on the couch and, drink mulled wine and just enjoy the holidays. But maybe that's not the offer that you're giving, right? Or maybe the request is, could you help me with something? And that might get lost in translation too. So having expectations, allowing people to say no, but also being clear enough about why the request is important, all good things. Okay, great. So we're coming at about the last 8 minutes here. So we'll turn it over to Sherry for the closing discussion.
So we've had a lot of good reminders, and this is your chance to think about how would you like to use the coach approach over the holidays, given all that we've talked about today? How would some of you like to use this over the holidays?
I would like to say that I would like to use everything, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't remember. And that's I would like to have tattooed in my arm or in my hand, the steps, the areas, because at least I remember centering and being present. But then it's like the questions. And for example, all these webinars, I wish I had these black mirror devices in my eyes or something to bring it back and say, oh, I need to say this here. So that's my way of saying I love this. I think that we're not unidimensionals, and being healthy individuals that can have these expectations and being mindful of this in our families and personal lives is going to help us be better professionals. So I cannot tell you how much I love these. But I think that as you guys were talking, and Donnie, that's a perfect example in what Helene just said here in the chat is very, very clear and why, right? So it translates to requests or offers that made at work and also at home.
Yeah.
So what I would like to use over the holidays is go a step further, and also as regarding the requests, and with families, like you said, we're acting more like spoiled, like expectations, like we expect, but it's not. So just be more mindful of what requests I'm being asked to, what am I asking and not expecting from people, but also remembering the other part of the steps. So asking questions, being present, continue to be present, but also maybe asking a question, not react. That's a big one for me. Not react, but actually respond to anything that is happening around me in the most, kindest way for everybody. That's what I hope I can do.
Thank you, Maria. It sounds like even though you don't have all of these steps right there in front of you, it sounds like you've got a lot of them that you're thinking about and want to put into action. So that's great. Someone else, how you would like to use the coach approach over the holidays?
Well, I just want to say it's so great when we, do these, because it's always the reminder to me is how much this can assist in just taking a load off of our own shoulders, as we're going through these holidays, because we can sit down and say, oh, okay, when we get so, bogged down and then you're getting upset because I asked so-and-so to do that, but then remind to be able to stop and go, what did I ask? And and being clear on what I, brought to the situation. It is something that I could clarify and kind of ease, the just the tension sometimes, when we have so much to do and there's so much going on, and just being able to take those moments and go, oh, I don't have to hold this, all on my own shoulders, and I have steps and I have tools that I can kind of get through this. Even Mary Garrett, earlier when you were saying about just that reset, that I can breathe right now and change the entire outcome, of what was going to happen in this situation. Something as simple as just taking a few breaths. So I appreciate everybody's input today. This is wonderful. I'm going to take it all into this season.
This is Doris. I just wanted to say I am so, encouraged by this discussion today. This, as, in our professional lives, has the potential to really change patterns that have been ingrained in situations and environments and individuals for many, many years. And it just has the potential to really change the outcome of interactions with family members, things that have occurred in the past where there's resentments, there's hurts, things that people hold on to. It just is so encouraging and so heartwarming, particularly now it's the holidays, but to really change the dynamics of long existing interactions with family members and with people. So I'm really encouraged and really just feeling really good about this this webinar today and going into the holidays.
Thanks, Dora.
Sure.
So this is Ellen. I was just reminded, this is such beautiful feedback, and the conversation is reinforcing everything that we know we're becoming. Yeah, I was thinking, Maria, about you having the list in front of you, and I can just say that something as simple as the breath, as Dwaneen just said, is like sometimes all it takes for me to remember the sort of the approach I want to take. There's that list, as everyone knows, of like stressful life events, and sometimes you like check the boxes and go, oh my God, I'm in the midst of like so many of them. So this past summer, I moved, I retired, there were several things that were happening simultaneously. And my doctor said to me, be very present or be very aware, Ellen, because when people are under such stress, accidents increase, like kind of Alex, like what you were saying, like it's the opposite. It's so unfamiliar, this world that you're in, and you're used to running, 50 miles an hour, be very present, or the stress will cause accidents. Accidents like tripping and falling and breaking bones. More bones are broken during high stress times than anything. So I had that in my mind over the summer, where I was very, very attentive to my body, like how I was moving my body so I wouldn't fall or trip or anything else. But what just occurred to me on this call is that if I'm only focused on the stress, which I can sometimes easily do, I could have a different kind of accident. And that's the accident of like snagging someone's scarf when I didn't intentionally mean to do that. And the accident is interpersonal, damaging a relationship. And so as I go into the holiday season, I'm going to be as attentive to my emotional and mental well-being so that I don't create accidents that I didn't mean to cause.
What a great point, Ellen. Yeah. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. What outcomes would you like to see from using the coach approach? Some of you have already talked a little bit about how using the coach approach has made a difference and hoping that it will make a difference. Is there anything specific about outcomes that anyone wants to talk about?
So Sherry, I'm looking at time here and it's about 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So I will just add, just any sort of last thoughts for any of these questions or any response to the webinar as a whole as we wrap up.
I would just like to say, I send my best wishes and my hopes that everyone's holiday season will be a little better this year than it has been in previous years with these kind of, skills and whatnot, and the knowledge that we have now that we may not have had, in previous years, and when it was such a huge stressful. And I hope that on the other side of the holiday season, you can look back and go, wow, that was a little less, less stressful than it, usually was. So, and then have a wonderful holiday season, everyone.
Thank you, Dwaneen. Any other last words? Okay.
Thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you guys very much, honoring our commitment to end on time. Thank you so much for the participation, and to our facilitators. I'm going to ask for the facilitators to hang on just for maybe about 5 or 10 more minutes to debrief.